r/ask Reddit. What's the fastest you've ever gone from caring about someone to straight up loathing them? A former friend bailed on me when we were supposed to hang out, and so I called my then girlfriend to see what she was doing, and I could hear him talking to her parents in the background. Having your friend bang your girlfriend and her parents? That's rough. Damn. Sorry man. It's in the past, but it wasn't the only time something like that happened to me. I have some pretty serious trust issues that I am actively working on. It seems to be going well so far. As fast as it took for his wife to call me at work to tell me that he was not only married, but had 3 children including a newborn. That is brutal. Sorry. This was when I was still in my teens many decades ago. It broke my heart until he started stalking me. My hurt turned to hate quite quickly. You're better than my cousin. At least. She was divorced, in her 40s, when she met a man at work and started sleeping with him. His wife gave birth to his kid. He had 2 older kids too, and my cousin was still sleeping with him. Then he got divorced and my cousin married him, and he's a great guy. Yep, sure he is. He only cheated in his pregnant wife and then left her, a newborn and 2 older kids high and dry. But yes, he's totally a great guy. One summer back in high school years, I had a crush on this girl and we'd hang out when we weren't working together. A friend of mine would keep insisting that I should just ask her out. So I mustered my courage and asked her out. Yeah, it was a glorious fail. I still remember when she smiled and told me the truth. That was when I found out that they had been secretly dating for a year and thought it would be a lark to just duck with me. 100-0 in a few words and a vicious smile. Like that. Except friend kept insisting that I lose my virginity to my boyfriend, who she was secretly ducking the entire time we dated, and they thought it would be funny if he took my V card. Friend at a bar tells some people we just met how her mother died. Later in the night I express my sympathy. Now she's without parents. She told me hush hush a few years prior about how father had passed. Wait, did I tell you back then my dad died? I thought I told you it was my mum. No. Both my parents are still alive. When we were in uni I just read in a book telling people a parent has died isn't good way to get sympathy. Haha. Ducking sociopath. What an utter pose. Reminds me of a guy from my school who was in my acting class, and he used to pretend to break down and cry, then when asked what was wrong would say my mom dad died, and after gathering a fair crowd he'd laugh it off and say it was a joke. Yeah man, hilarious. He did this multiple times with multiple groups of people. I loved, still love, playing Pokemon, and I had no female friends with the same interest. Found out about this group of guys that played it after school. Got really excited and made plans with them. I waited for hours and they never showed up. Next day I overhear my best childhood friend laughing about how annoying I was and that they had to hide from me to play in peace. That really hurt. 1 year friendship with this girl. I invited her over to my new apartment. She came over and wanted to gossip about her co-workers. When she paused, I tried to add into the conversation, make a joke, give reassurance, add a comment, etc. But she would immediately raise her voice and start talking over me. I kept getting angrier every time it happened until I was actually loathing her internally. She was so self-absorbed that she didn't notice I went from smiling and engaged to frowning while staring off into space. After 2+ hours of not being allowed to talk, I made up an excuse to kick her out of the apartment and then vowed to never see her again. Sounds like one of my current friends. Only has time to talk about herself. Doesn't care for my opinions unless it somehow contains her. Only asks about my life after she's run out of things to complain about. My ex-girlfriend. We were childhood sweethearts. Dated from 17 to 25. Found out she was cheating on me with her boss, who was more than twice our age. Then proceeded to find out there was many more occurrences and she was a very different person than the person I'd been dating. Shattered. That's almost exactly my story, but I didn't find out until I was 30. I feel for you. The first girl I ever dated died unexpectedly on my then current GF and my 3-year anniversary. My then GF stated she was pissed because my ex had died on purpose that day because it was our anniversary. I was utterly disgusted and it completely changed how I viewed her altogether. Things fell apart shortly after and we broke up. Sounds like your ex's plan worked well. My best friend back in school got a F from the teacher. Me and him asked if we can go to the toilet. I go to the toilet to text a bit with friends from other school. He goes to the parking lot and scratches the teacher's car. School break and the teacher finds his car. We both get called to the director etc etc. Friend said that we both scratched the car. IQ showed the teacher my phone to show him I was texting and couldn't have scratches his car. Told friend to duck off and went out. My, at the time girlfriend, had a little sister. She was graduating from college, and her college was not close by. It was a few states away, and at least a 5-hour drive. We both loved the sister, but we weren't going to make it to her graduation. We couldn't afford a hotel for the weekend, and we couldn't take off from work to get there on time. She freaked out on us. It was the biggest tantrum I've seen an adult make. My GF and I both assumed it wasn't that big of a deal, but seeing how much her sister freaked out, we re-evaluated the situation. So, we packed up quickly and drove through the night to get there. She told us we could sleep in her apartment that night, but that we need to get a hotel the following night. That was fine. We found something online for like $100 night. We got to her place in record time. It was not even midnight. We felt like heroes for making up so quickly. We get to her apartment, and she won't let us in. She says she's already in bed, and we should have gotten there earlier if we wanted to take her up on her offer. So, we're both exhausted, and we have nowhere to stay. I wanted to just turn around and go back home, but my GF was a better person than me. Luckily we had other friends in the city, and one was nice enough to give us their couches for the night. It's been like 15 years, and I assume the sister was getting one last lay with a college hookup, because I could not imagine any other scenario where she couldn't simply walk down 2 flights of stairs to open the door for us. I ended up marrying the GF, and still bring up this situation anytime she gets in a fight with her sister. It's usually I can't believe how selfish my sister is being, and I go you can't? Remember that time we drove to her college gra, and she cuts me off? Of course she also remembers it. Gave my roommate an envelope with a money order for bills in it to drop in the mail. He got arrested. While looking for some of his documents to take to him, I found the opened, empty envelope in his closet. Peace out. Hey, I was looking for your stuff, but all I found was another charge the police can pile on top. Similar story. 2 friends were renting a place. One moved out and I moved in and took over their half. After a while, my friend decides he's gonna move to out of state. Okay, fine. I decide to just move back home for a bit. He packs up and leaves town in like a day. My friend that I took over for and I were still there clearing out some things they had left behind. The landlord shows up looking for no out of town dude wondering where the last 2 months rent are. Guy was just taking my money and pocketing it and then skipped town. Didn't even tell the landlord he was leaving. Thankfully the landlord forgave it all. Found out this girl I was getting close to had been lying about her ex being a deadbeat dad, and well, her ex, he wasn't just still in the picture, they lived together. I should have guessed after the 3rd or 4th time she made an excuse to not go to her place. Never ended something so quick. When he straight up denied my existence in front of his friends. I had a lunch shift in high school where I knew absolutely no one but my brother. He absolutely denied all knowledge of who I was. Even after the people he was with knew I was his brother. It was super ducking awkward. Eventually I made friends with some classmates and sat with them. When my best friend of 10 years slept with my boyfriend of 2 years, I was so crushed, but to be honest was more angry with the friend. I truly did believe that I was deeply in love with the boyfriend, but he was kind of a shithead to begin with. I saw my friend as a sister and her betrayal left longer lasting impact and hurt way more. I hated her in a violent way for a very long time. Fast forward 11 years and now I am to a point where I have forgiven her and wish her well, but would never let her back into my life again. This must happen often. Something similar happened to me. Best friend of over 10 years slept with my boyfriend the moment we broke up. She did it because and he did it to get back at me. Edit. I realize this needs more context based on my info. My then boyfriend asked me to be the main breadwinner of our relationship because he wanted to pay less in child support fees to another woman. His idea was as he was barely getting minimum wage she would get less money from him, which is true. However, he wanted me to be the one to work full time and weekends to ensure we had enough money while he got a part-time minimum wage gig to barely pay child support and wanted to sit around the house the rest of the time or playing with his band. I was appalled and broke it up. He slept with my best friend the next day and called me afterwards apologizing and said he was sorry about sleeping with her and wanted to get back together. However, he still wanted to shirk his child support paying duties and hoped I would reconsider. The guy went on to stalking me around work and elsewhere, having his friends check up on me, and tracking me down when I moved states. For everyone defending this guy, I suggest you think again. My father abandoned me and my ill mother. He just ran away. I am a single child, so I had to take care of her on my own. It was hard. I loathed him. Hated him. I no longer hate him. Just forgot about him. Hating someone for too long takes a heavy toll. I am grateful to have had the chance to take care of my mother and help her get well. Damn. This hits hard. I am glad you dealt with it. Grew up good despite being treated evilly. My childhood friend, he lived pretty close to me and seemed like a nice dude until he stole my GoldenEye and moved to Minnesota. Duck you, Derek. Was at my wife's family Christmas gift exchange. My wife is estranged from her direct family, so this was all of the uncles, aunties and cousins. There were multiple nieces and nephews running around having a good time. We all agreed to a white elephant exchange for the adults so we didn't have to buy a lot of gifts. We did that the night before and did the gifts for the kids in their morning. Morning rolls around and all the kids are opening gifts, except my son. None of those entitled asshats got him anything. He sat there and watched everyone else open multiple gifts and it broke my heart to see him sitting there with nothing. Duck those people right up their stupid a-holes. My mother fought cancer for 5 years. My father let my sister and I do 95% of the work caregiving and after her death expected us to step into her place and take care of him. The man I used to love and respect is gone and I can't stand to be around him anymore. There can be some serious burnout after the death of a loved one for whom you are a caregiver. Please take care of yourself. When my grandfather screamed at my mother that she had ruined his life by being born. Never spoke to him again after that. Damn. And my grandpa told my uncle that he was praying for hardship to enter his life so he could get closer to God. My uncle is probably going to have open heart surgery soon. So you know, awesome dad. When he started being condescending to me in almost every conversation we have, in about almost every topic we talked about, then him complaining to me that some people can't handle him having such strong opinions on topics he is passionate about. My husband adopted my son when he was 3 after being in his life since he was 1. Gave him his last name, the whole 9 yards. When we had a child of our own, who was a girl, and decided we were done having kids, his mother said to me it's a shame we aren't having more kids, as she would have liked someone to carry on the family name. I have only tolerated her at holidays ever since. Whoa, I remember as a kid seeing my name in light pencil on a very stylized family tree. My aunt was written in calligraphy and my mother was totally missing. My mother was adopted before my aunt was born. East Coast WASP family. Had a male bestie for more than 10 years. One night I was upset and crying cause I witnessed my friends die at the beach a few weeks earlier. He stays over to comfort me and suggests he sleep over so I wouldn't be alone. He promised he wouldn't do anything. I believed him. So he held me while I cried myself to sleep. I wake up to him fingering me. Without my consent obviously. I lost my mind and told him off and kicked him out my house. He came back a few days later to apologize, but I was so disgusted with him I told him to duck off and never talk to me again. I blocked him. I felt so disgusted and betrayed. Had a really great friend in high school. He was cool but he's always been trying to sell stuff to people in the hallways, like video games or pocket knives or sunglasses. After over a year of being friends with him, he came over to my house to hang out, and when he left a bunch of my favorite video games were missing. I realized what was happening, and I had plans on forgiving him if he just fessed up and apologized. Instead he got super defensive and angry, and I instantly lost any respect I had for the guy. I let one of my friends borrow some PS4 games and a controller. The 3 games were $60 each and the controller was $65. He only asked to borrow them for a few days, as he only had access to a PS4 for that time. A few weeks go by and I've forgotten about the games, but when I did finally ask, he just never replied. 2 years later, one of our mutual friends informed me that he sold them for weed money. In April I went on my yearly 3-day trip with my mom to Las Vegas. In that time, my ex moved out of my apartment. I found out because the landlord called, concerned I was moving. I knew nothing about it. I then called my ex to ask what on earth was going on, and she didn't pick up. She left furniture that I am still trying to get her to take, and took shit of mine that she won't give back. Now I'm stuck in an apartment I can barely afford, struggling to survive. I can't move because my rent is cheaper than anything else in my city. It's been tough. Really made me lose all respect for her. I was doing online dating which really sucked, but I met a guy that I really liked. I was cautious and tried to be careful and take it slow. We dated for a few months. No sex. Lots of making out, but as yet no sex. I finally felt safe enough to start thinking about sex with him. He was very good to me and I felt like we could be a good fit. So, one day he asks me to take the afternoon off and meet him for lunch. Fun, I say. So we have a lovely lunch and he asks if I'd like to get a hotel room. I was caught quite off guard by this, but eventually agreed to it. We hope to the room and things progress nicely. He's very sweet, gentle and loving. I felt very happy. We start having sex and he's on top. He starts talking to me saying how this is going to be the best revenge on his girlfriend. WTF. I froze up. I literally froze. I couldn't move or respond or anything. I know I should have just thrown his ass to the floor, but I was just numb. He finished his business, used a condom, thank God. We got dressed and left. Never spoke to him again. Had made some plans with the GF at the time for Valentine's Day. This was back in late HS. Had called her on the phone a few hours before to reconfirm details, and she abruptly begged off cause supposedly her parents were going to be having a date of their own later that evening, and so she was being assigned to take care of her grandma for the day. Her grandmother needed constant care, so it wasn't especially unusual for one of her parents to be taking a day to stay with her. She was supposed to leave pretty early in the afternoon and be with her all evening. So I decided that the least I could do was maybe drop off some flowers and chocolates and basket and stuff so she'd have something nice waiting when she got back. Spent a bunch of money on getting something nice. Showed up at her place around 5, expecting just her parents to be there, and not only was she the one to answer the door, I could clearly hear both her parents chatting away in the background and there was no grandmother to be seen. Turned out, she just didn't have the guts to bite the bullet and properly break up with me. She was just going to keep cancelling until I got the picture or something. I worked for my stepmom with the intent that I would take over the business when she retired in a few years. I took more than a 50% pay cut and left my career of 10 years of managing and leading organizations to come work for her. Those few years came and went with her unable to even talk about a timeline for retirement. I spent years trying to fix processes and procedures around the office to make her life easier and to make the general workflow easier for all employees. But she was completely resistant to any change from the status quo while simultaneously always complaining about how busy she was and how we just didn't have any good processes in place. I finally confronted her about her retirement timeline and putting it in writing that I would be her succession plan. She balked at even putting together a plan for her retirement. I let her know that I really couldn't hang around if there weren't any prospects for advancement or pay increases. My wife secured a job in a new town and I gave my stepmom a 6-month notice that we would be moving. I explained that I would be more than willing to help hire and train my replacement and finish formalizing all of the procedures I had developed in my time there. She fired me the next business day. Duck that beach. My best friend, who I considered a brother, was working for me. I called him to talk about the next job, construction, and he informed me that he had started his own company and taken my other full-time employee with him, who was working with me that day. Yeah, needless to say that one stung for a bit. We're cordial now, but it will never be the same after that. It's been 3 years. At an event I walked up on 2 of my friends talking complete shit about me. Cut them both out of my life at that moment. and have not looked back. I'm so late, but I have a story that isn't of the cheating variety and made me lose any respect for 3 people at once. Late high school years, a friend in our group had invited everyone to hang out at his parents' house. We were supposed to agree on a time the day off, but people weren't answering my calls or messages or were really vague. It was almost 7 PM, which was a couple of hours later than I'd figured, so I decided to drive over. I sent one guy a message saying no one's really answering, so I'll just go ring the friend's doorbell. So all of a sudden, the friend calls me and says he was caught up in something and the whole thing might be off. He'll let me know. Thing is, he called me when I was just parking in front of his house and had a clear view of almost everyone in my group in his house. I let the call go on for several minutes, watching him motion people to be quiet, doing the talking hand yada yada gesture etc. without letting him know I was watching him, until the dude finally spotted my car. He then, very obviously, told everyone to hide because he thought I'd just pulled up. And one guy who also pretended to be my friend actually hit the ground together with his girlfriend to avoid being seen from the window. So those 3 people, 2 friends and the GF of 1, I have absolutely zero respect for. Also, I have nothing to do with any of them anymore, so that's nice. Then again, I also very clearly saw one real friend tell the friend off. He also called me immediately and said to wait up. He'd rather hang out with me than those a-holes. 20 years later, we're still very close and effectively formed a new group of friends. So big silver lining. When I told my mom we were adopting a baby, she asked, "Don't you want to have a real baby?" I'm adopted. Years ago I had a roommate. We're pretty good friends before rooming. I walk into the living room and he's on the phone. Says, "I miss you, man. I love you too," and gets off. Immediately turns to me and says, "Man, that guy is such a loser. It was his best childhood friend who was going through a rough time and apparently was kind of mentally impaired. He caused people bully him at his warehouse job and just wanted someone to talk to." I didn't have a good relationship with my family, and my in-laws were incredible. They would help out whenever and however they could. Then my daughter, elementary school age at the time, told me that my father-in-law had molested her. Whoa, you made it to the end? You're a ducking beast. I'll cut you a deal. Smash like and subscribe for more curated content, bruh. It's free and that's a great price.